Coach, could you start us off with an opening statement, please?
Yep. Yeah, man. Shoot, awesome to be back in here with you guys. That means we're getting ready to get started, and we're fired up about this season. We've had a great off season, I think. As far as going all the way back to January, and then added some lot of players, quite honestly, and then this summer as well. The guys have worked extremely hard, and obviously, when you're looking at our team this year, we talked a little bit about this at media days. I mean, we have 47 new scholarship players since December. So, that's a lot. I mean, it's over 50% of your scholarship players are new. I think our guys have done a really good job of being connected. That's one of the things we focused on in the spring and this summer, is being a connected football team, working on the discipline aspect of it, holding each other accountable in this off season, trying to make it as hard as possible so that we can face adversity in the off season, not necessarily in the game. So hopefully the games will be much more easier for us and our team. And that's kind of be our focus in camp. It's going to be a difficult camp as far as putting a lot of pressure on our guys, putting them in adverse situations, seeing how they're going to react, finding out who our guys are. I mean, that's what especially these first 2 weeks of camp are, finding out where guys are going to be playing, what roles our guys are going to have, how can they help us go out and be successful. And that's what it's going to be all about, and coming together as a football team. We go to Higher Ground on Saturday. First practice is Sunday at Higher Ground. Our first 3 practices will be here at Nippert on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, got everything scheduled out and ready to go. Do want to mention we have had a really successful, healthy off season. Do want to mention one guy, Micah Coleman, will be out this season. Had a lower body injury while training this summer a few weeks ago, and he will not be able to play. Sincere Lewis was this spring that had an ACL that we had talked about, so he's obviously out. But everybody else is back and ready to go. I know Corleone's a big talking point for everybody, and obviously one of our great leaders. And Corleone's he's back to training, working with our team, working with our doctors, and then he seems to be in great shape as far as mentally, and is ready to go. And hopefully we're very optimistic about him and his future here as a Bearcat. We'll open up with questions.
Defensively, is this unlike anything you've ever seen, because there is so much unknown in terms of where guys are going to slot, and how exciting is that going into camp, because there is, it would seem on the surface, a lot of jobs up for grabs.
A lot of jobs up for grabs. And it's a new defense as well, right? So we're looking at a new scheme, a lot of new players, and there's been great competition on that side of the ball. When really at all levels. When you think about, I think about the safeties, I think about the corners, I think about all 3 linebacker positions. I think about the defensive line, where we got a lot of bodies there as well. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of new players. It's going to be some great competition. And, and that's what I'm talking about. These first few weeks is really kind of sorting all that out. Like who's going to be playing the star position, which is our middle safety, who's going to be playing the field strong safety. I mean, so a lot of good players in those positions, and so it'll be some great competition.
Since Rear, the quarterback position has been in question. So, do you know who's going to be the quarterback, or who's going to be the leader of the team?
No, I mean, we're still competing at that position like we are at every position. I think about, you look at the offensive line, we got all 5 starters back, but, man, they're all competing. I feel like we got at least 9 guys that can go out and play at the offensive line position. So each and every day, they're going to be making themselves better. I think the quarterback position will be very similar in that. We got, Lichty, who's back, who's played a lot for us last year. Then you got a true freshman in Samaj, and then Brendan, who came in January. So I think that's a great competition right there. They've really been competing hard against each other at the same time, trying to help each other. And I think that's very healthy in their relationships in that room. As we all know, you better have at least 2 or 3 guys ready to go at that position. And so I feel very fortunate, particularly in this day and age in college football, where so many quarterbacks have moved around, for us to have, I feel like 3 solid guys at that position.
Keegan and Scott.
Coleman being out, is the plan a medical red shirt, and then next up after him, who's going to slot in at that defensive
I mean, I think certainly we'll try to get that year back, with that injury. It's tough. I mean, you know, you got Eric Phillips, obviously that's there at defensive end. Varner, you know, Rob Jackson. You know, I do think, you know, Marquise Wes Parker's a freshman that I think may have a shot there. You know, I think he's coming in and looked very well, or very good. You know, so I think we're just going to be by committee there, you know, and start rotating guys. And I feel like on defensive line anyway, we got to play a lot of players at D-line. Like, we got to rotate. You know, even though a guy like, you know, like Corleone, who's, you know, one of the best in the country, we still got to rotate him. Like, we got to keep those guys fresh up front. I felt like last year's, particularly on defense, at all levels, we got wore down, particularly by the end of the year. We didn't have the depth we needed. We couldn't rotate like we needed. I mean, Jack Dingle was, you know, beat all to hell the last 6 games, you know. So hopefully now we got some guys that we can rotate in that spot. So it'll be the same thing, I feel like, at all 3 levels in the defense. And I do feel like we really helped ourselves this offseason with depth, really at all 3 levels.
You got a slew of new defensive backs in. They've all played at different places, had some success at different places. How difficult is it to gel a bunch of eyes into we's?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's like I mentioned earlier, being connected football team is what we've worked on throughout the spring and summer. And these guys have done a great job of competing with each other, at the same time trying to build each other up. And I think there's been a lot of positive messages coming from our guys. We intentionally this offseason did our crews. And within the crews, there were 6 crews. You know, we have every position that is on a crew, and so they all get to know each other a lot better. You know, and the competition's there. So it's, I do think, too, that's part of camp. I mean, you know, everybody's got to find out what their role is going to be. You know, am I going to be a starter? Am I going to be a guy that's going to come off the bench, but I'm still going to get 30, 35 snaps? I mean, so those are the type of things we got to work out over here the next few weeks.
Marshall, then Chad.
You brought up your opening statement. Adversity and trying to prepare yourself through that so you're ready for the regular season. What did you learn from last year, the first year here, first year in the Big 12, that the adversity you can actually prepare for in training camp heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you don't really truly know how somebody's going to react until they face adversity. And so what we try to create through our workouts, through practice sessions, is situations where they're going to get it, you know, in that adversity, where you know, you may put a ball down and call something and run a play. Well, you think you got a first down as an offense, but then we'll say, nope, there was a penalty. We're backing you up 15 yards. Now you got to get it again. And I want to see, hey, are they hanging their heads, or they say, all right, let's freaking go. And so we try to create those type of situations in practice in this offseason, spring practice. You know, and make it as hard as you can possibly make it, where you feel like the other day we were running half gassers. You know, a guy, they didn't make their time, so hey, you're right back up again. How are you going to react? And you got to make it in a certain time. So you're going to hang your head, you're going to start, you know, pointing fingers, or you're going to get back on the line and run it again. And those are the things we want to see. And you know, our guys this summer have done a great job with that, and I feel like we're in a much better place. And so many things we learned from last year. Obviously, there was a lot of close games that we didn't win, and it comes down to only a few plays. And to me, discipline was a big part of that. We were not very disciplined in our assignment, or you know, getting penalties, turning the ball over, those type things. We just worked a great deal this offseason.
How do you make discipline part of your program, though?
Well, because you know, if you have to lift at 6:30 in the morning, we're telling our guys you have to be in our building before 6 to get you something to eat. And you do this, and you just do this for 6 months. We've been doing that, you know. And if you're not, we had some guys that were 1 minute late. Well, the other players kicked them out of the weight room. Like, you were 1 minute late. We're not dealing with that this year. So you're going to work out on Saturday morning since you missed this lift on Wednesday, for example. And it's coming from the players. And that's when this whole offseason is so refreshing to see as a coach, to see your team members holding each other accountable. And I think that's huge. You should see a big difference this year for that.
Chad, then Charlie.
The running game was up to your standard, I would think, a season ago, but the passing game didn't quite get there. Xavier Henderson is back on the outside. Competition in the slot, competition at number 2, competition at tight end. Where are you at going into camp, do you think, in terms of pass catching and being able to move the ball through the air?
Well, I think we have some quality individuals out there at wide receiver this year, some new names, Tyron Smith, Tony Johnson, Jamoy Mays are some guys that I feel like come in that can do some really good things. Guys that were on our team, Aaron Turner, Sterling, Burkhalter, I think both of those guys had outstanding springs that will give us some great depth. Barry Jackson is as talented as any of them, and of course you got Prater. I mean, Cale Woodburn's probably maybe the fastest kid on our team. We saw that in the spring. I think he had a nice catch in the spring game. He's really improved himself, and I think so he'll give you something different. I just think we got a good overall mix of guys, depth-wise, way more than last year. But we all know it comes down to quarterbacks making the throws, and we had guys open last year. We didn't finish the plays on several of those guys. And if you hit some of those throughout a 12-game season, if you hit 7 or 8 of those balls down the field, I mean, your passing game is going to look a lot different. And I think, and it certainly to me should open up the run game a little bit more. I mean, we were playing teams last year; they're packing the box up, and we're still able to run the football. Speaks well for our offensive line and our backs, but. Hopefully this year we'll be able to push the ball down the field more. I mean, we feel good about our running game, but we do have to push the ball down the field more in the throw game and connect on those deep balls and get some more big plays. To me, we were lacking in the big play capabilities last year offensively. We moved the ball and we had yards, but we didn't score the touchdowns we needed, and I think it was the big plays that we just didn't get. And, it's been an emphasis all season. Hopefully we'll be able to hit those this year.
Alex, Charlie, Joe.
You guys are still searching for your first Big 12 win at home. Have you guys talked about defending home field, making Nipper Stadium a tough place for opposing teams to come in, and how much have you talked about that this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, our very first meeting this summer, that's one of our goals is defend Nip. I mean, we have to. I mean, that's, if we want to be successful in this league, I mean, you have to win at home. This has to be such a great home field advantage for us. We have outstanding fans. Our student body that come out, they're incredible. It should definitely be a home field advantage, and we have to take advantage of that. And so that's the number one goal. We've talked about it all summer. We play Miami again this year. We have to go win that game. It's not here, but that's a huge game. We all know, and we've had players throughout the summer stand up and talk about what it means to them to defend Nip and to get the bell back. I mean, and so we, every week we've had a player and or coach get up and speak to the whole group, and so it's on everybody's mind. It's a huge emphasis for us, and one of our big goals.
Like a great update on Dante. Do you anticipate him practicing early in camp or any other details on the timeline here?
Yeah, I mean, we just take it one day at a time with Dante, and our training staff does an outstanding job in handling that. But he is, the last probably month has been training with our team, working out, lifting, running, doing all those things. He certainly will be out practice with our guys. We'll see how much he can do as we work through camp. I think part of him is getting him back into shape. I mean, he missed 2 or 3 weeks there at the summertime, so hopefully getting him back in the best shape that he can possibly be in. And then whatever our doctors and trainers allow him to be able to do, then that's what we'll do. So we're certainly just leaning on them, and we'll take it day by day.
When preseason polls come out, I'm sure every coach digests them differently. Do you care that you're picked 14th out of 16 teams? Do you use that with your group?
No, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, preseason polls are – I don't even know how anybody picks a preseason poll. We just mentioned 47 new scholarship players. I mean, how does anybody really know? I think, they base it off of the previous year usually. And so, we didn't have a great year last year, so we're probably deserved to be where we picked. It doesn't really matter. We have had a great focus this offseason of being the best we can possibly be, and being a connected football team. And if we continue that and live up to the standard that our players have set and our coaches have set, then we feel like we're going to be a very solid football team and a team that'll be hard to beat. And that's what we're focusing on as we move forward throughout this camp.
Big plays, a lot of time big plays, and get you into the red zone. How do you guys plan on working through camp to be more efficient in the red zone this coming season?
Yeah, I mean, we worked on, every day in the spring practice. It's 15 practices, so we're every day working on that. And this all season, looked at a lot of different teams and studied red zone play, how we can become better. But ultimately it comes down to playmakers, and who do we need to get the ball to in those scenarios, in those situations. But I do think, if you can score from, outside the red, that's going to help your scoring. Therefore, I think once you get down in there, you should be better at scoring. I think, we got to do a much better job of just getting the ball in the end zone. I mean, we don't want to settle for field goals. We all have heard and seen what happened last year. I mean, we want a different outcome, and so we'll continue to work on it in fall camp. It'll be a big emphasis offensively and defensively in the red.
Dan and Keegan.
What caught your eye, excuse me, when you first started watching Sorsby's Indiana tape?
Competitive spirit is probably the first thing. When you turn that tape on, I mean, he's, obviously making some great throws, but then he's running hard. He's trying to run over people and trying to fight for extra yards. I mean, that really caught my eye, and I thought, man, this kid is a competitor. So that just tells you he's a competitor. And then once you get to, we started talking to him, got to know him a little bit more. And, he's a very, team-oriented player coming from a quarterback position, which I really like. I mean, he really just fell in here and, trying to do the best he can for his teammates and everybody around him, and but he's got a good release. He's got a good arm. He's changed his body tremendously. It's amazing. He came in around 241 or so, right in there. Now he's right around 228. He's running better, looking good. So, I think he should be a really good quarterback. I mean, one that we'll see how this competition works out here over the next few weeks.
This is a new era of technology in college football with the intercommunication, the tablets.
Yep.
Do you see that as a benefit or advantage for the offense over the defense, and kind of what have the plans been put in place for that? Yeah,
no, I'm excited about that. Really two things. Number one, the communication that we're going to have from coach to player, and we're certainly, like most teams, put that on the quarterback, so they'll be able to hear, what we're saying. Defensively, whether it be a linebacker or a safety, we'll put that on there. But I think that's awesome, all right? But then being able to come back off the sideline after your series and go through the plays is going to be incredible. And I do think it will benefit the offense more. And, but it'll benefit the defense as well. But the offense, to be able to see exactly how the defense is lining up for this game, because sometimes defenses, what we worked on all week, maybe they changed, they tweaked some stuff. All right, after the first two series, you come back and you say, all right, look, the safety's doing this or the D-line's doing this, so now you can really combat that, and that's going to be incredible. So we are going to work that this camp. We're going to have at least 2 scrimmages where we're going to work the technology. Our first major scrimmage here, I think maybe 10 practices in, we'll use it. I think you get 18 iPads. And so now how do you split that up, offense and defense, and up in the box? And so we got to have a great plan for that when the guys come off the field. But I do think it's going to be awesome. I mean, I'm excited for it, and it'll certainly benefit all of us.
You lost 2 tight ends that had some production. You gained several decent dudes. Mm-hmm. Are you better in that room?
Oh yeah, I think so. A lot better in that room, and. The guys that we brought in, we're fired up about them. We feel like they can be outstanding tight ends. The 2 freshmen that we brought in, love those 2 freshmen that we brought in that got here in January. That is probably the most improved position on the football team is the tight end room. And, we added size. We added guys that can catch. We added a lot of depth. We love to use the tight ends. Every snap you're going to see a tight end on the field, and sometimes you're going to see 2, and other times you're going to see 3. And we got to be able to utilize those bodies right there. They'll also really help special team wise as well. So yeah, we're excited about that room.
With the turnover and 47 new guys, it's usually very difficult for freshmen to get on the field because there's talent stacked ahead of them. We saw some of these guys in the spring flash and make an impression. Is this maybe going to be an opportunity for some of those talented young guys to advance faster than normal?
I think so. I mean, first of all, I think Zach Grant, our GM, did a great job evaluating our coaches recruiting this class. This is an outstanding freshman class. Number one, high quality individuals, and number 2, they can play. The 10 guys we brought in the spring, they all flashed, like all of them. I'm like, and then so now, you're already seeing improvement this summer from those guys because of having been here in the spring. They're probably well ahead of the other guys that showed up this summer, the other freshmen. But since they've been here 2 months, I'm starting to see some of those guys starting to flash. So we're really excited about some of these freshmen. There'll be some of those guys playing for us. There's no question about it. Obviously, there's a lot of competition going on, a lot of depth. But once this thing starts working itself out, I mean, I firmly believe that we'll see several of those freshmen that'll be in the mix and playing for us.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
I don't like giving us mic.
Coach, no opening statement for you. We'll just have you take questions, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, perfect.
Sounds good.
Questions for Coach?
Coach, you walk into a situation with a lot of turnover, a lot of moving parts. Is this maybe easier for a new coach, or do you prefer to have a bunch of guys that have played together and you can just teach them the new system as opposed to getting everybody on the same page kind of at the same time?
Yes, sir. Continuity is obviously super important, whether it's on a staff or within a team. So I feel like any organization, the more continuity you have, the more experience you have, the more common language you're on. So for me, being the only new coach coming in on defense, I was a lot like a lot of our roster on defense, right? So there was probably some continuity with me and all the new guys. We were all probably learning at the same rate, I feel like. So, but with that being said, the defensive staff that was here was no different. They had done one thing a year ago, and we were changing things up simply if it's a word or a term or anything like that. It's new. So I don't think it was negative, but to answer your question, continuity is obviously helpful. Yeah.
Satterfield up there just spoke about how they're going to try and, especially on the defensive line, get guys rest, keep everyone fresh. As someone who's making those calls, and there's undoubtedly a big drop-off in talent when you go from a Dante Corleone to someone else, how do you get the middle kind of more even from the bottom of the guys who are going to be playing to the guys at the top like a Dante?
Sure. Well, as we know, repetition's still the mother of all learning, right? And being good at the fundamentals that are required to perform the task are super important. So through the spring, we played a number of guys at more than one position, not just at defensive line, not just at linebacker, all the way through the defense. So hopefully the experience our guys gained there with helmets and shoulder pads and all those things on carried into the summer. Even though you're not doing things with helmets and shoulder pads, you're still trying to replicate as much as you can, for lack of a better term, real life football. So hopefully that has helped us prepare for where we are today, but hopefully that will prepare us for week 8 and 9 and on down the road as well. And hopefully that has also prepared us for the fourth quarter. So I think playing a lot of guys is something we would like to do. We're a long way from knowing that today to August 31st naturally, but hopefully that can start to come together for us.
Also spoke a lot about discipline and making sure, there aren't the penalties, tackles are being finished. With a bunch of new guys on defense, how do you make sure that discipline is a part of this defensive culture?
Sure. Well, I think it's a part of everything that you're doing. So showing up to the building on time, performing the workout in the weight room the way it needs to be done, doing your academics the right way and on time, and all of those things to me lead into discipline, how you take care of your body, your nutrition. So there's a lot of things that we do that hopefully develop a disciplined routine, which develops mental toughness, which you hope your guys have. So to me, it's everything that you're doing throughout the day.
Going off Marshall's original question, Coach Satterfield told us you guys lost defensive end Micah Coleman for the season. What have you seen from Marquez Parker, Rob Jackson, and Eric Phillips that you believe that they would step up in that role and produce?
Sure. Well, all of our guys, the guys you just mentioned, have had really good summers. The guys that are returning, Eric and Rob, had a better summer this summer than a year ago. I don't know that. I wasn't here, but talked to a lot of people, obviously, so I've gathered that information. So that's encouraging. Both of those guys went through spring football, which is encouraging. Marquez has developed in his short time here physically, and that's really a great starting point. But as we know, there's a lot of mental that goes into what we're doing. So hopefully Marquez can continue to develop. We've got other guys there too that we're going to ask to help us out as well that also were here through the spring and we feel like progressed as well.
Linebacker, you brought in Bartlett from West Virginia, and then Dingle and Thompson were here, and Simeon Coleman looked great during the spring. And then suddenly I hear about this kid from Central Arkansas that I didn't know much about, but apparently Gold Days turned some heads.
He's a big, strong kid for sure. He's smart, and usually that correlates into helping a football team out on a Saturday. So hopefully that trend continues. The other guys you mentioned did have really productive springs. We've got to naturally keep everybody healthy in that group, and we're going to need to play more than 3 or 4 guys at that position in order to be healthy at the end of it. So I feel like just watching film throughout the course of last season, Jack Dingle gets to the end of the season and is a shell of himself. So we need to continue to build our depth there. It's a super physical position, as we know, a violent position. So we're going to need as many guys as we can get there.
Justin and Chad.
There's a lot of success running the ball in this conference last season. Obviously really familiar with the 3 safety look. Have you considered like adapting odd fronts or 3 high safeties with teams seeming to kind of maybe go back to the run game a little bit more?
I think every game plan starts with how are you going to stop the run, at least minimize the run, you hope. Slow people down. And I think, as you mentioned, most people in this conference are going to try to figure out a way to run the ball first, naturally. So that's a part that we're always trying to do. The one thing you know, come off of a block and make a tackle for you in the run game. So we've worked on that a lot. Hopefully we can come up with some ways that can slow some people down, and we'll see what we can do.
In the spring, you ran like a pod system that never really put the 1s and 2s like all completely together. I think in the spring, Satterfield talked about taking that into the camp. How long do you think you're going to continue that experiment before you actually getting to specific 1s and 2s?
Sure. Really, in fall camp, you've got a couple scrimmages that you have set up that you know you're building toward. And I think typically those scrimmages allow you to make some moves between 1s and 2s, 2s and 3s, et cetera. So, we'll be a few days in here before we actually are able to put full pads on and determine in that scrimmage how we would potentially move things. The one thing that I know, and I feel like our defensive players know, is it's going to take every guy we have to have a chance to play representative defense every week. So even though we are, as you mentioned, structured a little bit differently with our depth right now, to me that won't change a ton once you get started. So the value of it is hopefully to even reps out in the end of fall camp, so you have a fair evaluation process, especially like you already mentioned, we've got a number of new guys. And there was only 15 practices that we were able to do in the spring. So I believe we'll continue to work on that.
Did you get what you want out of that pod system through the spring?
We absolutely did, yes. I mean, the number of guys, as far as reps being dispersed evenly with our healthy bodies, we absolutely did. I think we're able to also determine maybe what certain guys needed through this offseason and through some of our player-led practices that we had. And I think that helped us that way as well, as far as evaluating specific needs.
Off of Justin's question, do you sense that the 4 new teams coming to the Big 12, you played 2 of them this season, do you sense that they're going to keep that identity of teams being really successful at running the ball in the Big 12?
Well, I think by that point we'll know on those two opponents once we get there. But I certainly feel like just simply fundamental football and the foundation of what most programs are built on is that. Now, obviously, you've got to be healthy and figure out, each school naturally has to figure out who their playmakers are, how they're getting the ball to those individuals, and what positions they're in. So that broadly changes people naturally, but I think generally we would say people would like to run the football if they can.
Coach, talk about the secondary there a little bit and what you've seen from them. Obviously, a complete rebuild from last season. What have you seen from those newcomers there at that secondary position?
Well, certainly, like you mentioned, a lot of new faces there. And we've got guys in varying degrees. Some guys with this is their last year of college football, which to me always means a lot. When a guy's on his last year of college football, it's much different than a guy in his first year of college football. So we've got a hungry, competitive group. Collectively, they've got an outstanding work ethic. So I feel like we have a chance that way. And naturally, we need to stay healthy.
With Dante on the road to recovery, what did Jalen Hunt show you in the spring and summer?
Jalen has gotten better each day since I've been here personally, mentally and physically both. He's an outstanding human. He's worked really hard. He leads others, which has been a lot of fun with him and Dante, really having different leadership styles, but both effective. So that's been a lot of fun. Now, you would say his leadership role has probably increased with Dante's injury. So he's done a great job with that. Jalen has. He is a guy that knows more than one position, which is certainly going to help us, and we know we're going to need Jalen.
Back off Neil's question, in the secondary, it's a lot of new faces, but is there anybody new or old kind of taking the leadership role pretty serious lately?
Yes, we've had a collective effort there among that group. One name that was here a year ago, Jordan Young. He had a very positive spring, recovered through the offseason, was healthy, and it has worked very hard. So one guy there from a year ago. Some new guys that, to me, emerged in the spring. Derek Canteen did a great job. He's durable. He's smart. He works really hard. He has leadership qualities, and has done that through this summertime as well, bringing guys together. And I don't want to really leave anybody out, to be honest, because I really like that group. They have worked really hard mentally and physically both. And obviously we added some true high school freshmen to that group in January as well that you all know about. And we're getting guys back healthy from some injuries that they had during the spring yet too. So collectively, I think we're all trying to figure out where each guy is best, what situation each guy is best in, and probably overall what their best abilities are.
You guys have a plan this upcoming fall camp for the new technology and the tablets and how you're going to integrate it. How do you kind of look at that? Do you have a plan in place for how your coaches are going to use it, how the players are going to use it, and do you think it's more of an advantage for the offense, or does it give the defense an edge?
Well, I stepped in at the right time because I heard Coach Satterfield say that he felt like it was an advantage for the offense, and I would 100% agree with him on that statement. When you're able to speak to the quarterback, and you know exactly how much time you have, and you're controlling the tempo and the pace, that would say you do have an advantage on the offensive side. Defensively, we experimented a little bit with it in the spring. Not quite sure exactly then how to use it. And I feel like a little bit the same standing here today, that we're going to need to experiment with it through fall camp. There's, a lot of things that you're going to have to continue to do defensively that you've always done. And I think talking with a lot of guys and people I'm close with and what their plans are really align with what I was thinking. We're just trying to figure out what's best and how many different forms of communication you're going to need to have. So that's one of them. We'll use it. How much it'll really provide an advantage for the defense, I think, is ambiguous right now.
Any more questions? Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
Yep, it's good.
We'll take questions for Coach Glenn. Chad?
Coach, offensively, the run game, I think, accomplished what it wanted to accomplish last year. What's the next step? Quarterback, obviously, but what's the next step in getting that passing game to match what you were able to do in the run game?
Yeah, obviously, really good in the run game. You know, sad part about that, doesn't score points. We've got to score points, period. You know, 23, I forget what we averaged, 23, 24 a game. You know, it's not going to get it done. Obviously, we want to run the ball, and I think that's where it starts, you know, with Coach Satterfield and our staff. And, you know, that's the team makeup. They know we have to run the football effectively to win. But at the end of the day, you got to score points. You got to be good on third down. You got to be good in the red zone. You can't give up sacks. You got to connect when people are open. You know, all things that we need to improve on from last year. So that's just that next step, you know, and obviously bringing in pieces of the puzzle, you know, making your roster better, which I feel like we did a really good job of this year, will help that out tremendously. But we just got to be efficient and take advantage of each one of our possessions by putting the ball in the end zone.
The second running back position last year was a significant role in the offense with Miles and Ryan Montgomery. With Evan and Chance, how are they coming along, and what are you kind of looking at that second running back position?
You know, good, and I think if you probably pinpoint one spot that's kind of got a lot of hidden importance, it's that second, you know, running back spot, whoever that may be. You know, obviously Corey back, you know, that's tremendous for us to have him back, that experience. A guy that has handled the load and been successful. But that number 2 spot is important. And we got to find that, you know, early on in camp, you know, and we've got several guys, talented guys vying for that spot. And they've all shown signs, you know, throughout spring ball and throughout the summer and how they've worked. But you really don't know, you know, until you get into the battles, the heat of the battle. And so that'll be a point of emphasis on us in fall camp.
Xavier Henderson, the receiving leader, Tony Tyron, they've got some big catches at other places and all that. Do you see settling on 3-4 guys, or is this going to be like hockey line changes with all the
you know,
that you have?
I think it's always good to have a good number, and I think we do in the receiver room right now. You know, we've got several guys, you know, that you guys don't even know about that can be a factor, you know, in this upcoming year. But you can't replicate experience, you know, and that's what Tyron and Tony and Aaron Turner brings to the table. So those guys, you know, will get significant playing time, you feel like. And, you know, you look at what Barry Jackson did last year when he got his, you know, few reps, in-game reps. You know, we just feel like he can build off that. We've got to get him, you know, the ball in certain situations because he's definitely explosive. And you got to get him a certain number of touches. But we feel like it's a great room there. They all worked hard. They're all really consistent. So there's several guys that could see themselves in the mix.
About the running game being really good last season, how beneficial is it for you to have all 5 offensive linemen returning this season to run the football?
Yeah, I think you could ask any coach in the country, you know, that question. They would all love to have that kind of experience coming back like we do. And especially with the type of offensive we run, you know, everything runs through the running game and our O-line. But just have that chemistry and that camaraderie back, I mean, gives us a huge plus. And then when you couple that with Corey and the experience and he has, you know, it's definitely a security blanket for all of us.
Similar question. With the O-line returning intact, how does that impact you in training camp in terms of maybe there are things you don't even have to worry about teaching or whatever, because all these guys have been through it together?
Well, I think what it does probably first and foremost is now you can focus a little bit more on the twos and the threes and give them some more reps, because those guys, those 5 guys, maybe 6 guys that had tons of reps, tons of experience last year. You just kind of have to keep those guys fine-tuned, so you can focus a little bit more on your depth at that position, and that's a huge plus. Yeah. Well, definitely mismatches with those guys, and our tight end, it's kind of a, for lack of a better term, a positionless tight end. They all can do a bunch of different things. They can play your traditional H-back. They can play an inline tight end. They can play a fullback spot. You can split them out wide and use them in mismatches in the passing game. So to bring in, Joe Royer, a guy that's got experience, that fits that mold, can do all of those things. Francis Sherman, we got several. Joey Belgian, Zahersky from last year. We brought in a freshman, Gavin Grover, who fits that to a T, and has a tremendous future ahead of him. But to have that many guys in the room that can do multiple things like that, big advantage for us. And you get back to the red zone targets, low red zone. We struggled in the red zone last year. Having those guys to be able to be viable options down in the red zone will be a huge help in that department.
Touched on it there, but the red zone efficiency, how do you, besides the tight end position, how do you become more successful in that and practice that throughout camp so you're ready for week 1?
Well, we had a lot of explosives in the running game last year. But we didn't finish, been a huge emphasis with Corey and the backs, finishing those runs, breaking tackles. When you there's 2 huge things on offense. When you take care of the football, when you don't turn it over, and then you win the explosive play battle, you win 90% of the time, maybe 92, 94% of the time. If you just do those 2 things and nothing else. So we got to finish off explosive runs with scores. And then we've got to get creative, probably a little more creative with what we do, especially in the low red zone. It's kind of been of a point of focus for our staff, in the offseason, getting tight ends more involved, doing different things, from a formation standpoint. But we've put a lot of thought, into that, because it was such a struggle for us last year.
Opening up the middle of the field. It felt like that was an area that you guys didn't really get the chance, for whatever reason, to explore much. How key is that, and what's the plan of attack to open it up?
We've got to do it with the things we call and the certain concepts that we run. We got to make sure we're hitting on all areas. But usually that's the last spot for a quarterback to get comfortable with. Just from a common sense standpoint, it's because there's more bodies in there. I feel quarterbacks feel real comfortable working on the edges, and that's what we did a lot last year. So having that growth at the quarterback position should open up that area of the field a little bit more for us.
Coach, we open up our email, and we have a new watch list or award that Luke Kandra is up for. In fact, we just got one that he's on the Outland watch list. Easy question to ask, maybe hard to answer. How good is Luke Kandra?
Number one, experience. Just the number of reps he has in all the different game-like situations. You cannot replicate that. And then his skill set, what he can do, obviously in the run game, and then pass protection. Being able to do that. I mean, he's a complete lineman. He doesn't just excel in one spot. Whether it be run game, pass game, whatever. He's complete where he can do both. You can count on him doing both. And then just his leadership, up front for the O-line, and then for our offense, and then for our team. All those things. He brings a lot of value, to us. So to answer your question, very good player. Glad we've got him. Bright future ahead.
Coach?
No.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Coach White making a lateral move from Iowa State to Cincinnati. Have you had conversations with them this offseason about how to attack and exploit the best defenses like Iowa State?
We did, you know, and it's different. You know, structurally, it's different. You know, you put defenses into categories, you know, and you go through and you look at the structure of this defense. Well, what category can you put it in? You know, it kind of stands alone. So as an offensive coach and an offensive staff, you know, we've had discussions, you know, what's the intent of that structure? What are they trying to take away? What are the soft spots? What do they give you? So we've definitely had that, because you're going to see more and more people, you know, go to the three safety look because it's different. It looks different to the quarterback. I think one thing we need to do, you know, from an offensive standpoint, if we can get up on people early, you know, and take an early, you know, 2-score, 17-point lead, I think that plays into our defense, into that structure's hands, because when that defense knows that you're throwing the ball, it is very tough to complete passes on it. So we're going to play off that without question.
Any other questions for Coach? Dan, final question?
I'll just belt it out with no mic. Evan Prater missed spring
Yep.
football. What are your hopes and expectations for him in his second year playing?
Man, we're trying to keep him healthy and where he can get a string of practices, you know, under his belt. It seems like there's always been something, and a lot of times it's little nitpicky things, you know, that's happened to him where he can't get, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 practices under his belt in a row without something happening. But obviously we know what Evan means to our team and to our locker room. You know, undoubtedly one of our leaders of this group. But he just needs to stay healthy where he can get that reps, because, you know, we talked about it last year early on. He took to the position very smoothly. You know, it wasn't just a huge transition for him. He had great ball skills. He understood how to get open. He just needs to stay healthy so he can get some days, to stack some days under his belt.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Good.